Hello. Can't tell if I'm on yet. Just a moment. I'm just watching my screen. Okay, I'm going to assume that yeah. Hi, I'm Patty Whipfler. I'm the founder and the program director at Hand in Hand Parenting. Thank you for coming, being interested in being part of the solution around ending racism in the United States and other parts of the world as well. I'm really glad to be with you. Thanks for taking the time here. So here's what I want to talk about today. At first I thought I would do a quick little 15-minute, very brief overview, but given the gravity of the situation in the United States and the importance of us having a good perspective on what is going on in the protests and the reaction to the protests in our country, I think I want to make it a longer live and but still be as concise as I can. And the things I want to cover are these. You're going to see me looking just a little bit over here because I want to do this well and I need my notes. So pardon my, the interruption of gaze. And I think the other thing I want to say is that um, giving this talk is not easy for me. And I'll just tell you a few little things about why. I come from a town in which no people of color were allowed to own homes or buy. I knew this was wrong from the time I was young. I come from a family in which racism was open, and I did my best to stand up against it, but you can't really, as a child, change your parents and how they were raised and how they were hurt. So I am going to take little moments here, little 15-second moments, to try to offload the fear that I feel so I can be more myself while I'm giving you this talk or while I'm saying these things. So, and here's my first one, okay? Oh my gosh. Oh. Uh. So, turns out that trembling helps us overcome fear, and it doesn't do that overnight. You have to do a fair bit of trembling in order to get less scared. And so I'm going to take little breaks and do this every once in a while. Oh, and I can feel myself tightening down. Okay, so what I want to cover. I want to cover sort of the basic facts, the basic premises from which I'm speaking about how to build the safety and the strength to be part of the solution on racism. Then I want to go to some basic directions for us as parents in this regard. Like, what are the kinds of things we can do that are part of building a more just and loving society? And the third thing that I want to cover is basic things to remember when we are trying to explain the behavior and reactions of grown-ups to our children who are trying to really understand the world as it is. Okay, and I forgot to turn off my heater. I have a heater here so I don't freeze. I need to turn it off. Hang on. There we go. Okay. And again, the reason we're talking about this is that our whole nation is in a formative time of people expressing their desire to work for liberty and justice for all, and people are totally done with the lack of justice. In people of color we have a long history in the United States of mistreating people of color. That history continues, and people aspire to be seen, to be heard, and to be treated fairly. We all aspire to that. We all deserve that as human beings. So that is our situation right now, and the perspective that Hand in Hand comes to it with is this. First of all, we're born to love one another. We're born to cooperate. We're born to want to be part of the gang and to contribute to, the lives of others, as well as to receive help from others as we grow. We Anybody who's been around a 2-year-old who, sees you after you've been outside for a little while, sees you come in, they run and grab onto your leg, and you just know that what love is like. It's passionate, it's free flowing, it's shown in a million different ways, and we're born like that. Everybody's born like that. When people are not being loving, when they're not, allowing fairness, when they're not treating one another with respect, when they're not listening to one another, it's because we get scared. And when we get scared, our brains shut down and we can't think. We just can't think. And so the behavior that comes out of us at moments like this is not helpful. It's not pro-human. It's not pro-cooperation. And it's not, we don't get to take constructive initiative. Sometimes when we get scared, we withdraw. We don't want to talk to anybody. We don't want to see anybody. And sometimes that fear shows up in aggression and mistreatment of others. So this is true from the time that children are very small, and it remains true for all of us. There are times when we're thinking and we can be generous and we know what's right and we act on that. But when we're scared, those beneficent qualities of human beings that we all have access to at times do shut down. Just a little poignant example of this is I have a friend who is not a parent but was visiting a family that had a 1.5-year-old, and he hadn't been there for a while, and he was, the father had the 1.5-year-old on his shoulders, and they were playing and kind of goofing around. The 1.5-year-old was really happy up there. But all of a sudden, either as an experiment or because he suddenly got scared, he slapped his dad on the head. And his father reacted instantaneously and just kind of pulled him down and just gave him a whack on the butt. And without even thinking, it's like that, when we're scared, somehow the slap on the head scared the dad. The dad acted out of fear. He, did the same thing to his son that his son had done to us, which was whack him. And the child, of course, cried. And the father, gave a little lecture and put the little boy down. And the friend watched all this and got down on his knee and just, looked friendly. He didn't kind of impose himself on the child, but just looked friendly. And the little boy came up to him and looked at him and slapped him in the face. And this is how the contagion of misbehavior or off-track behavior happens. One person goes off track or they are misunderstood, and I think, 18-month-olds do experiments, but maybe he was just too scared to be up that high on his daddy's shoulders. So he whacked his daddy. Once the fear took over, he couldn't be loving and relaxed anymore, and that's what he did. Then his daddy, who probably had been whacked many times in his life, gave him a swat. Again, out of fear, without thinking. And then the little boy walked over and he basically tried that pattern out, showing the person who was paying attention, I don't understand this. Please help me with this behavior. And so when people go off track, the main thing that helps them recover from the fear that overthrew their better nature is to set a limit, a loving limit. And a loving limit has two parts. One is it's very important to set the limit. No, I can't let you do that. So what the friend whose face got slapped could have done was just to touch the little boy's arm and say, "No, I can't let you slap my face." And then you add the love. So, and both of these things create enough safety to heal the off-track behavior. So the limit makes it so that a child cannot do an unsafe thing with another person. They cannot. You're there, you're stopping their arm. You're noticing, but there's no blame and no shame. The love is the no blame and no shame part. And added to that is eye contact and a willingness to listen. And when you do this with a very young child who has not had to train themselves to keep their feelings in place, what comes out is lots and lots of tears, or maybe lots of laughter, maybe the effort to slap again and just go, no, that's a slappy hand. I'm going to hold it. So, this is how we heal the fear that causes hurtful behavior is with limit, love, and listening. No blame, no shame. Yes, I see your brain your brain got fried there. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'll help you recover from it. Tell me more. That's the listening part. So we call this stay listening. So you set a limit and then you add yourself, add your attention, add your permission to have whatever feelings you've got, and out comes the hurt. In goes the love, out comes the hurt. And when those two things are happening at the same time, hurt feelings are coming out, love is going in. And sometimes you have to set a limit in order to make it safe enough for the hurt feelings to come out. And the love and a child needs to be able to feel that they are respected, that it's understood that they are good, that they can tell that you know they're good. And basically, it's that understanding that someone is good and the safety of a limit and the tell me more attitude that allows healing to take place. We can heal racism in this very same way. I'm not saying we can heal it from today to tomorrow, but we can help one another, become less afraid of people who we've been told are different from us, and that we've been told is important. It's like basically when you listen to people, although they might have a very different background, have very different beliefs, have a very different history, maybe they speak a different language. All of these things are supposed barriers, but they can be overcome by listening. I'll just say one more thing. My son and daughter-in-law took in a single mom and her son to live with them for about a year. They came from an Eastern European country. They spoke, well, the little boy who was 2 spoke no English whatsoever, had not really heard English in his life. His mom actually was fluent in English. But my grandson was 2 at the same time. These 2 boys were exactly the same age, and both had been very gently treated, so they weren't very scared. And they had long conversations in English and Estonian, which was this little boy's language. They could play together for hours, and my grandson would speak in English, and his friend would respond in Estonian, and somehow they would figure it out. And that friendship was very, very strong without a common language. So we human beings can be the same. I have lots of hope for our capacity to understand across all kinds of barriers. So, and yeah, you could trust that might be true. So first of all, we are good. Second of all, when we feel afraid or alone, or after we've been mistreated, after we've been harshly treated, thoughtlessly treated, sort of been unseen, we get scared. And when we're scared, we don't think very well. And the behavior that comes out is not pro-human. It's not pro-cooperation. It's something else, something obviously else. What makes it safe is that there's a limit set. Either we decide we are not going to act that way, although we don't know what other way to act if it's our behavior, or we set a limit for someone else, but without blame or shame, with the communication, I know you're good, I'm just not going to let you do that. And under those circumstances, in general, people can heal from hurt. And the way we heal from hurt is to have someone's caring go in while we laugh, while we cry, while we tremble, while we rage, while we kind of basically um, use our power to show how upset we feel. And that can be pushing against a wall, pushing against a pillow, pushing against someone's hands. There are times when we're trying to heal from powerlessness, when we actually need to use our physical power as we get the feelings out. I'm going to take a little break here. We can change our lives in this way. If we've been taught to be afraid of people of a certain skin color, or people who speak a certain language, or people who have a certain job in the world, if we've had incidents that have, hurt us, or in which we've been mistreated, and we're now scared of that kind of person, um, we can overcome those fears. We can relax again. We can get over the hard things that have happened to us. We need one another's help to do it. And that's where the tool of listening partnerships that Hand in Hand teaches comes in. So when you notice that you've been scared, or that you are scared, or you notice that you're scared that you will make a mistake with someone, that you will make a mistake as you try to bridge the supposed barriers between human beings who have different backgrounds, or I don't know, just human beings you've been taught to be afraid of. Um, Sometimes we're scared of ourselves, scared what we might do, scared of the little behavioral rigidities that we carry, scared to miscommunicate, scared to say the wrong thing. In order to bridge these gaps, we just need a listener, so we can go back and see what happened to us, when we got this impression, who taught us this interesting but false thing about the differences between people, who told us we had to be scared, or who told us we had to be harsh. We go back, we talk about those things, and with a safe listening partner, the talking soon becomes um, working through the feelings that are left over from these difficult incidents that have resulted from somebody being scared, somebody being hurt. Um, okay? Um, and I think what I want to also say is that children have a very strong and very accurate inborn sense of what is right and what's just and what's the right way to treat people. And it, if children are intimidated too early or too thoroughly, you don't get to see very much of this inborn sense of justice. But there's an interesting set of experiments that they did at Yale University in the United States, where they took little babies, like children around 8 months old, and showed them a little puppet show. And in the little puppet show, sometimes they would see a puppet that was helpful to another puppet who was trying to climb a little hill. And in another puppet show, you would see that little puppet trying to climb the hill, and you would see a different puppet pushing them back down the hill, kind of interfering with them, and in a way, treating them uncooperatively. And then, with little 8 months olds who are just, learning how to put their hands on things, where they want their hand to go, they then bring the puppets out and put the little animals that were used in the puppet show kind of in front of them. And something like 70 or 75% of the babies put their hands on the puppet that was the helper puppet, and ignored the other puppets. It's like that's the puppet they wanted to touch. That's the puppet they wanted to get. And we sort of take this as a sign that children actually know what is cooperative human behavior and lean towards it. That's what they want. That's what they like. That's what makes them feel safe and good. I am really sure of this too, just watching children's behavior and how deeply sensitive they are to any kind of harshness, any kind of off-track behavior. How that, yeah. So, um, and children will stand up for against mistreatment unless they've been intimidated. So, in families that don't do a lot of punishment, blaming, or shaming, a child can and will say, Daddy, don't talk that way, or Mommy, you sound mean. Mommy, don't be mean today, you know, and they will let us know about even just the tones in our voice that they can detect are off track before we even know that we're off track. We just think we're trying to get something done. We just think we're trying to get to the meeting on time. And they hear the fear and they can stand up to it. They can let us know about it. Um, and sometimes young people are able to do even more than that, to stand up to injustice. I know that one of our instructors, for instance, grew up in a family where the father, it's a family in which, um, the racism had always been, targeted. They were always targeted by racism, and the father then targeted the mother with violence in the home. And our instructor was one of the children who would she I think one time she just hopped on her father's back while he was being aggressive towards her mother in order to try to stop the aggression. I don't know very many children who have stood up to that extent. Most of us get paralyzed by the threat of violence coming from our parents, or the look of how much sort of long festering emotion sits inside our parents that has never been heard, um, and just the look of how off track that parent is can really paralyze a person, a young person. And most of us were in that position more of the time. But there are times and places where children do stand up to adult misbehavior and just get in there, which is so much credit to the human spirit and the human desire for people to be good to one another. It's very, very strong. Um, so and really, the reason why we may have a hard time standing up to racism, saying something about it when we see it, deciding to act together with others to change policies and situations in our neighborhoods and among our friends, is because of those incidents of powerlessness where we were intimidated. We felt like if we said anything, we were putting our lives on the line. So we feel like we can't say anything, and we don't. And so it's really, I don't know, in a way, in order to become part of the solution, we grown ups, we parents, need a chance to form listening partnerships and just start working on how we were disempowered as children, what happened to us, what grown ups did to make us feel like our lives were threatened, what grown ups did to, sort of strike grief in our hearts, or feelings that life would never be right. Those feelings we need to tackle because they happened a long time ago. The behaviors are sort of stuck on us now, kind of frozen in place, and we need a whole lot more range of motion as human beings in order to build the world we want for our children. So listening partnerships is a way to free yourself of the worries and the fears and the feelings like we can't stand up or we won't survive if we speak up, that keep us quiet and keep us unable to move things forward, where it's obvious that liberty and justice for all isn't happening. So that's about that. Those are the basic ideas that we work with at Hand in Hand. Um, let's see, hang on a minute, I just lost a, okay. So for parents, for one thing, I just want to say that we as parents are in a very powerful position. We are working so hard, especially during pandemic conditions. It's like the challenges in front of us are already, you know, we're a little gobsmacked by what we're being expected to do and how little we can't access the support we did have. So how little support is around us. However, we can move things forward. There are ways to do it sort of in the middle of ordinary life as a parent. And the way we raise our children is the most powerful thing we can do in order to build a more just and equitable society, is to raise children who have not been so intimidated, to raise children who can and do speak up, to listen to children when they are indignant about something we just did that when we didn't know we were off track and they called it and saw it and said something. Those are we we are building human beings who have packed inside them far less fear. And so they are going to be able to make friends more easily. They're going to be able to cooperate more easily. They're going to be able to speak up for what's right more easily than we are. We must not, go, oh, my kids will take care of that. It's like we need to be in the struggle too, because if you give up on moving towards what's right, you've given up a lot as a human being. None of us want to give up. We may have feelings like giving up, but none of us truly want to give up. So here are some of the directions for us. First of all, recognize that raising your children well, playing with them every day, listening to them when they cry, getting family fun times going on a regular basis. All of this builds a person who is going to be much more able to um, build the society and participate in the society that is more just and more equitable. So we're building leaders of the future in our homes every day, wiping their chins and changing their diapers and looking at the spilled milk and going, oopsie daisy, look at that. Oh, it's dripping. It's pouring. And, trying to, or going, God damn that milk spill. And finding a way to just, call your listening partner and go, this is just the last straw. It's been a horrible morning and I need to cry. The milk spilled and I just felt like the day was gone. And just to have a chance to cry with someone who knows you would be helpful. So, directions for us: honor the work of parenting that you're doing. This is world changing work. This is building a better world by loving your child well and by scraping off the reactions that, the feelings underneath the reactions that you have, so that you are more and more able to handle stressful situations. It's very important. In some ways, there's no more important thing that we can do is to love children well. Um, Secondly, notice what feelings you have. Notice what feelings you have looking at the news. Notice what feelings you have seeing how the protests are being handled. Notice what fears come up for you and take those to your listening partner. We all need to work on what the fears we hold from the past that are getting kicked up by these present situations, so that we can continue to be the parent we want to be. We can continue to do the job that earns us money if we still have one, so that we can continue to really think about what's most important in our family and, prioritize well, so that we can continue to protest if that's what we decide to do, in a thoughtful and open-hearted manner. So there's all kinds of jobs to do. We don't have to do them all in one day. We don't have to do them all in 1 year. Just, go ahead and back yourself on the job you've decided to do and notice your feelings as you do that job and as you see other jobs that you would like to be able to do or that you are afraid to do but need to be done. Take your feelings to your listening partnership. A good thing to look at in the listening partnerships are, what are the very earliest incidents in which you felt intimidated by a grown-up? What did you do? What did you say? What did you not do? What did you wish you could have done? Um, and just because those early moments of intimidation are what keep us from being able to act thoughtfully in the present. And oftentimes there's big wads of fear connected in with those early incidents. And we just need a chance to cry and fight for ourselves, and tell people, what we would have liked to tell them way back in the past, not in person, not now, just to have our say with our listening partner, listening and witnessing and encouraging us. We get to practice standing up in the moment. We get to practice fighting for what's right, in a safe environment with someone who cares about us, someone who understands what we're trying to do. We don't necessarily need to redress old incidents with the people in our families, the people who did them. You might decide to do that, but it's not. The most important thing is to get your power back, to get your self esteem back, to see how powerful you are and can be. That's the real loss, is the loss of our power, and you can get that back. Another direction is to remember your goodness. It's like one way to know that you need listening time, you need to offload old feelings in order to be able to think again, is that you don't feel like you're good, or there's someone else that you feel like is really not good. And actually, yeah, people are good, misguided, misinformed, badly hurt, but we're trying to resurrect. We need to be able to apply this healing process to anybody. And so, what you want to do is to remember your own goodness and to notice when you lose faith in that. Remember your children's goodness and to notice when you've lost faith in that. To remember the goodness of people you read about in the news, and to go ahead and work through feelings until you no longer feel threatened by them. Um, and yeah, it's like when we feel sort of safe and in we can remember our own power and our own goodness, that's when we can act most thoughtfully and most powerfully. Let's see. Take a look at what support you didn't get as a child. It's like there can be lots of grief about that, that needs to be shed in order for you to feel part of the human community in the way that you needed to feel back then. It's like we lose our sense that people can be there for us, and they can be, but believing they can't really gets in our way now of building a support system around us, so that if we decide to lead in any particular way, lead our families or lead groups of friends or lead in our community, we can feel backed, we can ask for backing, we can accept backing. So we need to look back at those most lonely of places, those most abandoned of places, and work on our feelings there with someone who cares about us. And we need, yeah, I think I already said this, we need to practice standing up for ourselves. I was working with a member of my family, a young person who had been treated badly during a very difficult time in her university career. I think it was beginning of sophomore year for her. And I was, I don't know, I was really sick at the time, so I couldn't really get out of bed. So she and I created listening times every day, for half an hour or an hour. I had the time, and it's like she'd been brought up by hand-in-hand parents, so she had access to her feelings, and she would spend, whole half hours just pushing against the wall and crying and raging at the mistreatment, and crying and raging at, how bad it made her feel. And it was actually very powerful work, and it changed her whole life. It just, she had not been able to make good friends at college before this happened, and this incident occurred, which looked awful on the outside, but because she got listening time, she used it to really scrape away those feelings of being so alone and needing her mom and dad and not being supported and not being understood. And she just would push against the wall and cry and rage and cry and rage. And every day for, I don't know, it's like about a month and a half, we did this often. And she just did a beautiful job of recovering from um, just a really hard time. And then her life was her own. She just took initiative, found friends. I mean, that she couldn't find friends, and all of a sudden she had really good friends. Not all of a sudden, but within a few months, she was making friends, making her education exactly what she wanted it to be. Um, you know, anyway, it was remarkable. We can do this for each other. Um, let's see, in real life, the directions for us in real life and sort of building a more just and equitable society across lines of race in particular. Um, we, if when we see something, it's good to say something. It's like, I think we need to shoot for see something, say something. Um, we need to shoot for not worrying about making mistakes. It's like when you very first say something coming out of a place of intimidation, the thing you say may not be what you actually, had in mind to say. But better to err on that side than to stay stuck in the pattern, right? And I think we all need permission to make at least a million mistakes in our lives. We need permission to make a million mistakes. It's like mistakes are a wonderful way to learn. They're not comfortable. They are not pleasant. Sometimes our mistakes can splash somebody else in the face with a tone that we didn't know we had in there. But how else are we going to break the pattern of silence and acquiescing to the status quo? So see something, say something, and don't be afraid to make a mistake. You can always work on the mistake later. You can always apologize. Um, and and apologies, actually, frequent apologies are a good idea. It's like we do make mistakes. It's really good to acknowledge a mistake. It makes other people feel safer. It makes us feel better inside that we've made that apology. But we don't want to make an apology as automatic. We want to first work on our feelings so that we can make an apology that comes from our heart. And that's why not to make your children apologize for their mistakes. You want to let children repair their relationships in their way on their time scale, and they do. As long as we have faith in them, you just watch really carefully after your child has made a mistake and made somebody cry or stepped on somebody's toe or grabbed somebody's toy. After you've listened to them, you don't have to make them apologize. You can just watch and just see the ingenious way that they go back and repair that relationship with the child that they just, that they just gave a hard time to. So, um, let's see. You want to? I wrote something here, but I can't read it. I guess the last thing is when you feel scared of something, don't believe your fears. It's really an important thing. It's like oftentimes we believe our feelings. Ooh, I don't feel like that's a safe person. I don't want to. And it may be that that person is kind of, not in their not in their best frame of mind at the moment. It may be that they're not thinking at the moment, but that person can probably think. That person probably has their good moments. And you don't want to believe that your fears will always be there, that because you feel like, moving away or not saying anything, that's, you want to question your fears. You want to look in there and see, well, why is it that I'm scared? What is this reminding me of? Who is this reminding me of? What happened with that person that this person is reminding me of? Where did I get, squished there? What feelings do I have about what happened there? Because we can really often entirely change our feelings about other people so that we can be unafraid of them they still have their patterns, they still have their stuck places, they still are hard on people in that way. But if we are in our power, we can figure out how to set limits or how to construct our relationship with that person so that um, we're we're able to stay in charge of our lives. We're not reacting to the kind of hurt that they're putting out. And it's I think the I think the best example of this, if there's a um, I think yeah, the title of the book is Long Walk to Freedom, I think, or Long Road to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. And he was imprisoned for 25 years for trying to end apartheid in South Africa and all of the political activity that went along with that. There was tremendous injustice there. People fought it and fought it and fought it, and the people that fought it the hardest and the were thrown in prison for a very long time. When he came out, he made contact with the president of South Africa, whose name I forget at the moment. I think it was de Klerk. And he went to this person and said, I know you are a good man. I know that you want what's right for this country. I know you love this country deeply, as do I. Can we make some agreement about ending apartheid for the good of this country so that this country can move forward without all of this inner strife? And I don't know how it went, but Mandela's strong belief in the power of appealing to this person's better nature, appealing to this person's sense of justice, appealing to this person's caring about his country. He just, I don't know, he figured out how to put his attention on the right thing rather than being afraid or resentful or reactive to the 25 years imprisonment that was, approved by this person and, for all of that time. It's like we have to have that strong belief in one another's goodness in order to make a better world. Um, we have to set limits as well. It's like you can't just love somebody and let injustice happen. But there are ways to connect with one another, ways to offer connection, ways to work on our own upsets until we're ready to have a strategy for building connection, on building it on the things we have in common rather than the things we're scared of. These are things we can do. And right now, if you've got 3 children at home and you are also educating them and you've got all of this going on, you can decide to do it through your work as a parent, through your work helping children, get over the hurts that make them hard on one another at times or make them scared of things at times. It's like you can change the world right where you are doing the parenting work you're doing. I know you can do it. And as you do that, you're going to build leadership qualities and leadership skills that when your children don't need you every moment of every day any longer, that you can use in groups of friends, within school communities, within faith communities, within your town and your area. It's like you are becoming a leader as a parent as you use listening as your tool. Um, so I think there was one more thing I wanted to say there. Oh, I know. Um, what our children can learn from is when we open our hearts to people who didn't grow up the same way we did. When we work to become friends, when we work to become less afraid of being friends with people who are different from us, when we work on our fears of betrayal or our fears of, I don't know, whatever it is that got you when you were little, that's what you're scared of now. And when we work on those things, our hearts can open. We can actually see other people for who they are so much better because we're not projecting our fears on them. So making friends is an important part of this process. and around children. So I think that for young children, I am not sure that it's really great for young children to see some of what is projected on TV news. So the killing of George Floyd on that video is probably not something that a child can digest without really being traumatized by it. And then the feelings that are installed there, it's going to take, you know, many hours of listening in order for your child not to feel, I don't know, in order to heal that trauma. Seeing someone killed is just, it's better if children, if if they're of an age to know about it, then it's better to talk about it rather than see it, I think. Um, we want to keep our children able to be active, able to be hopeful, able to trust in other people's goodness. And seeing an incident like that really can damage that trust in a way that is hard on your child and for a long time. So I would carefully curate the news that your children see and get as best you can. It's hard to do in this world, but as best you can. When they come to you asking, well, what about this and what about that? Usually the first tactic you want to do is to listen, just listen to them. Well, tell me what you saw, or tell me what you heard, or what are you thinking about this? Or tell me other questions you have, because I'm not quite sure how to answer yet. So it's like, tell me more is a good first tack, and then listen really carefully. Um, it may, and you might want to clarify what they're asking. Are you asking me this? No, because oftentimes our adult minds lose track of what children know and what they don't know. We tend to want to answer as though it were an adult asking that question rather than a child who is barely peeking out of their household to see what's going on in the world. And so, you want to try to clarify the question being asked before you give a long explanation. In general, answer only the question your child is asking. And you could fill in, I think the things to fill in, especially for, very young children, children 10 and under, is, people are good. When people get scared, they feel threatened and therefore they misbehave. And we are in a country that wants and is trying to create liberty and justice for all. And people who are protesting have not been treated with respect, they have not found liberty, and they've not found justice. And it's really good that they're speaking up about this. This is a country in which we have the right to do that. And it's really good that we do that. Just like when you tell me that my voice isn't right, I don't even know that I'm being hard on you because I can't think very well at that moment. And you speak up, and then I have the chance to say I'm sorry, and then I can do my best to fix it. So I think we want to let children know that grown-ups, like, and all people, have moments when they're not thinking well and they don't behave well, and that we need to set limits when that's happening. And so, and then kind of you can explain that in terms of the police have a job, but they may not do their job, well. They might be really scared and then be, hard on people while they're doing their job. The people who are protesting may have had so much hurt that they, can't do it entirely safely, but that's not the most of the people. I don't know. We just have to try to explain what's going on in terms of people not being able to think very well. Stress overcomes the mind and hard things happen. And in terms of, we in our family are going to apologize to one another when this happens. And we are going to, love one another as well as we can. And just trying to set like policy for your family that's kind of an example of what we would like to see in the broader community. We may not see it right now, but it is what we want to see in the broader community. And that and if we hold ourselves to that policy, that's just a great example to our children of a leader, who knows what a good and fair and equitable policy is, knows when they've crossed the line, apologizes for crossing the line. It's like our children learn so much from how we are every day, and that's kind of how we can show them our principles and our values. And yeah, so I think we want to use those conversations for just saying a little something about our principles and our values. It's like, and one of those can be really valuing our right to protest when things are unjust, when things are going wrong, and leaders have not been able to respond in a good way, or yeah, I need to shake now because oh, oh, I think I've been talking too long. Okay. Um, we need to let our children know that people don't mean to be mean. People don't want to be mean. It doesn't feel good to be mean, but sometimes people have been so hurt that they can't climb out of it. And limits need to be set, standards need to be set, laws need to be followed. All of those things are important as a way of making it safe for all of us. And I think that we can empower our children through play, so that when we play listen with them and they take the more powerful role, they get a chance to counter the smallness of being a child, the not knowing enough, about how everything works, that children are, that is the state of being for children. When we play the less powerful role and they get a chance to romp and, sort of get us through, pretend pretend contests, and beat us at the games, and beat us in running to the telephone pole and back, all of that. They get a chance to feel powerful as a person, and this helps them speak up when things are wrong. It helps them encounter other people in the world able to say what they think, able to express their feelings, able to fight for the things that are right. And so I think, yeah, and just we need to listen to children's great big feelings about tiny, tiny issues, because when children are working on a great big hurt, that's how they work on it. It's that you cut their sandwich wrong, or that you didn't dry their soccer shirt in time for the game, or just very, very small things have great big feelings attached. And that's when your love can heal the hurt. That's when they can become a more powerful and less frightened person. So let's see, I want to say that we need to listen to one another. It all comes down to so much listening is needed in the world. There is so much hurt. When we're hurt, we do our very best, but we sometimes act on the hurt that we feel. That makes life hard on other people, and we have bigger systems that are set to be unequal in this country, and those systems do need to be tackled. The people who tackle those systems need to be able to think, and that's us. It's like all of us can recover our ability to think in complex situations, our ability to fight for what's right, our ability to combat racism. We all can do this. And these listening tools are kind of the center of um, building safety with one another, enough safety to heal from hurt, enough safety to stand up for what's right, enough safety to work for liberty and justice for all of us. Thank you.